Hey everyone, welcome back to my blog, The Winding Road. Hopefully you started on your journey. How are you getting on? If not, don't worry about it. Just decide that you're going to start today. That's absolutely fine. Really quickly, I just want to reiterate the points from the last video. So we talked about believing in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will either. And if you don't believe in yourself, you're going to stop doing this after a while. So believe that you're starting and that you're going to get good at this. It takes practice, it takes time. You can't be brilliant on day one. Number 2 was to persist. Keep at it. Don't let anything get in your way. Start with a very short amount of time each day, but try to do it daily. We talked about free writing last week, and it was their start into writing. If you love the idea of writing, you love the idea of getting ideas down, but you just don't know what to write about, then take something like a photo, an object from your house, and decide to create a little story about that. We also talked about Yesterday I. Another great one for a little story starter is What If? Sometimes what I used to do in schools was I would get the kids to read the first line from a really good novel, and that would be the starting place for their story, and they would create a totally new story around it. And it always worked really, really well. These are just little ideas to get you into the flow of writing. But this week what we're going to talk about is looking at, if you do have an idea for writing, how to get started. And the really, really important thing is, and what I want everyone to do this week, is to set themselves a goal. So I want you to write it down. It's really important that you write this down and say, my goal is to write 100 words a day, 200 words, 500 words, 1,000 words. If you don't know how many words that you're going to write, why don't you check how many you can write on the first or second day and then up it by 50 or 100 words. And that way you're challenging yourself a little bit. So my goal for today is to write 500 words. You could go by time either. My goal is to sit down for 10 or 15 minutes. The only problem with that is sometimes we sit for the 10 or 15 minutes and we might not even write more than a sentence. Whereas if you have a word count as a goal limit, it actually works a lot better. So set yourself a goal. The second thing I would ask you to do is schedule time out for this. If this is what you want to do, if this is what you love doing, then you deserve it. And you deserve to schedule yourself time out for yourself to get this done. So decide, if you have kids or if you have work, if you have an awful lot of other responsibilities, and I know because I do as well, but if you want to do this, you have to schedule time out for yourself. So either very early in the morning, maybe on a break during the day. I know somebody who writes on their lunch break, but for them it's worth it because they absolutely love doing it. I know loads of people who write on their commute to work and know they're not driving at the same time. I know people who tape themselves when they're writing. So there's lots of different ways around it, and you deserve that 5 or 10 or 15 minutes or half an hour or more if you can get it. So schedule time out for yourself. Make sure you're in a space where you have it all to yourself, where you can close the door. More importantly, make sure you've no internet connection, because what a lot of us tend to do, and I have been guilty of this myself, is saying, oh look, I'll have a quick look at my emails before I start, I'll have a quick look at Facebook, and then I'll start writing. And half an hour later, you're still responding to emails or having that quick look at Facebook and nothing gets done. So forget about them. Decide that you can do them late at night when you don't need as much focus. Now is the time to write. So we're going to set a goal, 500 words maybe a day to start off, and then you can up it as you go along. And you're going to schedule time out. What will happen if you start scheduling time out is you'll realize that this is the part of the day that you're dying to get to. And even on days where you're like tired or where you're thinking, do you know what, I can't think of anything to write today, I'm not sure what I'm going to write, it doesn't matter. Just sit down at your computer or with your pen and paper, look back at what you wrote yesterday. That always gives a little bit of inspiration. Or just sit and just start writing anything. It doesn't matter, because within a few minutes you get into the flow and you're back there again. So that would be a really important thing to do. What I want to talk about today as well is a lot of people are like, well, what do I write about, you know? Don't think that any type of writing is easy. Sometimes people think, oh yeah, picture books, they only have a few words in them, or short stories, or fiction for kids, or chick lit. It's never easy, whatever you want to do. And you have to be passionate about that which you write about. So a good way of knowing what you're interested in is look at what you're reading. People usually like to write in the genre that they read in. So the different genres are anything from children's fiction to chick lit to lad lit. Lad lit is usually, humorous, contemporary, that sort of writing. There's horror, there's fantasy, there's sci-fi, there's historical, you name it, it's out there. And you can choose one of them. So when you're looking at the genres, the different genres, and when you're thinking about what you want to write, it's really important that you read a lot. And everybody says this, and it is. Sometimes for me, I find getting the time to read is more and more difficult, but it is really important to read in the genre that you write in. And not just read the books, but read it with a sort of a critical eye. Look at their style of writing. Look at how they keep people on their toes. Look how they want you to move from one chapter to another, that they keep moving on the plot very well. Look at characterization. That is really important, because characterization is your characters will rule your story for you, and they will lead the way for you. So characterization is really, really important. Kevin Barry, who has just won the Impact Award for his latest novel, congratulations Kevin, basically he says that the more you read, the more goes in, and it all gets jumbled up and mumbled inside, and it comes out as your own work of fiction, completely different from everybody else's. But all of those things that you've read have helped in your journey and what you've written. So it is really, really important to read, but it's also really important to write. So you've set your goal, you have your schedule, now you've looked at what genre you want to write in. And as you're writing, you can still be looking at the different books at night time and a few minutes during the day to see the different styles that's out there. You'll know the authors that you love and the styles that you love, but it is important not to try to copy them. When I was starting out, I always thought, oh look, I love this story, and maybe if I just change this character to my type of character, or this creature for another creature, I could make up a story sort of along the same lines and it would work. Doesn't work. So if you're not sure, if you're sure, okay, I want to write in this genre and I love this person's books and I'd love to write a story like that, what you have to do is try to create your own story. For me, I get an idea and I might be able to write a few paragraphs or a page or two or a chapter, and then it might stop and I don't know where my story is going. My characters tend to lead my stories. Sometimes I'm 3/4 way through a novel or near the end of it before I realise how it's going to end. So some people are good at plotting their story along, and that's a really good thing to do, to say this is the outline for my story and this is how it's going to go. You don't have to go chapter by chapter, but you'll have an idea of where it's going. Some people, as I say, look at the whole characterization. And that's what I want to talk about now for a few minutes. I think this is such a huge area that I'm just going to give a few tips this week, and then I'm going to look at characterization more next week. And I will go into plot and structure and all that again. So, for characterization, the first thing you need to do is you need to observe people as much as you can. What's the word? Not in a very obvious way, but just when you're out and about, just watch the way people are. Maybe if you're on the bus and instead of listening to music, you might take a few minutes to just listen to conversations. You're not going to write down exactly what people say, but it is interesting to hear how different people speak or the lingo of the day and that sort of thing. It also is great for just getting little ideas here and there. So what I want you to do, the first thing that's really important for building your characters is observe people around you, because you want your character to be as real and as lifelike as possible. The second thing I want you to do is I want you to, if you can, in the next few days, to look at someone in your life. Now, you don't want to take, into novels and that, you don't want to take people, your family members or friends or peers, into your books and write all about them. They might not appreciate it, and it's not such a good thing to do. But what I tend to do in my books is I tend to take little characteristics from different people, and it tends to become a new character all in itself. Like I think all of my main characters would have little bits of me in them. And I'm not saying that in a big-headed way. Sometimes they have a lot of faults, and some of those faults are mine as well. But it helps you to know what your character is going to do if you can take bits of people that are around you. So what I'm going to do before I go is ask you to take somebody that you know and to write a paragraph about them. It could be a physical description, or it could be little bits of information about them. Or you know what, if you don't want to do that, why don't you write a character description about you and about your personality, just to get you into, because what I found, I didn't do this on my first novel, but I've done this on my the novel I'm working on at the moment, and I actually took time to actually write about my characters. So I would write down their name, and I would say he's 11 years old, so I'd give a total physical description of them, and I'd say, things he likes to do, things he likes to eat, sort of just little traits and characteristics about the character. So I'm actually going to keep this video short today, and I'm going to leave that as your homework, and I'm going to wish you very well on your journey, and I'm going to see you next week again. We'll talk more about characterization, other things you can do. One last tip before I go. I might have mentioned it, I did mention it actually last week. Have you got your notebook yet? You really need a notebook or something to jot down notes in. Even when you're looking at people and different characters that you see or people around the place, it's really good just to jot down little things like that. And you can build characters from there. So anyway, happy reading, happy writing. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.